August 2019. The dry, scorching air enveloped the desert north of El Paso, Texas, where wind whipped up clouds of sand across the gas pipeline construction site. The light from the excavator's headlamps reflected off the red dust like fire until a metallic sound rang out, heavy, low, and out of place. Control. I think we found something, not part of this project. The supervisor's voice crackled over the radio, mingling with the howling wind. What began as a routine digging shift had now turned into something entirely different, something that would answer questions haunting the city of El Paso for over 40 years. Beneath the ground, they uncovered a rusted metal box, buried more than a meter deep, sealed with old steel wire. When the forensics team arrived and opened the lid, inside were the dry bones of a man, a wristwatch frozen at 9:15, and a wedding ring engraved with tiny letters, E to D, 1964. Immediately, investigators realized they had stumbled upon a piece of history the city had tried to forget. It was the disappearance of Fort Bliss engineer Daniel Harper, who vanished one July evening in 1977. He left home saying he was meeting a colleague, drove his silver Ford Galaxy out of the neighborhood, and never returned. 3 days later, the car was found abandoned on a dirt road off Highway 54. No blood, no signs of a struggle, no explanation. His wife, Evelyn Harper, was the first to report him missing at the police station. She said her husband went out just for a bit and then disappeared. For months, she appeared on local news, pleading for information. No one suspected the petite woman with sad eyes. No one noticed that, just 2 days before Daniel vanished, she had withdrawn over $1,000 in cash and bought a metal box from a local hardware store. Before we continue with this story that shook Texas, take a second to hit subscribe and like this video. Your support helps us bring forgotten cases back into the light, where justice, though delayed, can still resonate. The discovery on Farm Road 2595 didn't just close a missing person case. It was the first domino in a chain of events that would unearth secrets buried for 4 decades beneath the desert sand. Because, when the Texas Rangers Cold Case Unit reopened case hash 77104, they didn't expect that the first suspect from the 1977 investigation would be the same person who once stood crying before TV cameras, begging for information. Someone the El Paso community knew, trusted, and had lived among for over 40 years, carrying a deadly secret. The Harper case isn't just a mystery solved, it's a testament to the persistence of investigators who never let time erase justice, to advances in forensic science that gave a new voice to those silenced too long. It's also a story of a community that seemed peaceful but was full of cracks. Cracks that only became visible when the truth emerged from the ground after 42 years. What makes this case most haunting is that the answer was never far away. Evelyn Harper was questioned in the initial investigation, then cleared from the suspect list. For 40 years, she attended memorials for her husband, shook hands with police, sent flowers to the Fort Bliss monument, all while wearing a wedding ring identical to the one found in the metal box buried beneath the desert. Where are you watching this video from today? Drop your location in the comments below. I'm always curious to know how far these stories travel and how they connect us across distances. Tonight, we'll go back to the summer of 1977, tracing a stalled investigation, clues erased by desert winds, and the breakthrough that closed one of Texas's coldest and most haunting cases. This is a story of loss, deception, and justice delayed, but never buried. The summer of 1977, El Paso's suburbs were bathed in harsh sunlight and heat rising from the cracked ground. Afternoons passed slowly, the desert wind, carrying the smell of dust and gasoline, sweeping through the low trees lining the small street where the Harper family lived. Daniel Harper, an engineer at Fort Bliss, came home late after a long day. He ate a quick dinner with his wife Evelyn, then said he was going to meet a colleague to discuss work. Evelyn didn't ask further, just watched as her husband put on a blue shirt, grabbed his worn leather briefcase and car keys. Outside, the sky darkened, the last light of day blending with red dust. A few neighbors, still watering their yards, saw Harper open the garage, start his silver Ford Galaxy, and drive off. The engine's sound faded, lost toward the road leading to Highway 54. Then the neighborhood fell quiet again, only the hum of insects and wind through iron fences. As night fell, Evelyn kept the living room light on, occasionally glancing at the clock and stepping onto the porch to look out. By midnight, she called a friend of her husband's. No one answered. She waited, thinking he might have stopped at a bar on the way. But the next morning, the bed was still empty. The briefcase he took didn't return. Evelyn called Fort Bliss, checked with the engineering department, asked his closest colleague. No one knew where he'd gone. All afternoon, she called old friends. Places they'd been together, every lead was empty. The house grew unnaturally quiet, only the faint radio mixing with the hot wind through the window. That evening, Evelyn didn't eat, pacing the living room, trying to recall their last conversation. 2 days passed, no sign of Daniel. No one in El Paso or at the base had seen him. No calls, no messages, no bank transactions. Everything seemed cut off completely, leaving the small house with only the ticking clock and a desk lamp burning through the night. By the third morning, as the sun rose over the Franklin Mountains, Evelyn decided she couldn't wait any longer. She left the house, driving straight to the El Paso police station. Sunlight glared off the road, heat rising from freshly paved asphalt, making everything shimmer. Evelyn stopped in front of the old brick building, stepping into the quiet administrative area, where the smell of old paper and stale coffee mingled. After briefly explaining at the front desk, she was led to a small room inside. There, Sergeant Raymond Kincaid, in charge of the northern suburbs, took on the case. He opened a notebook, set a recorder on the table, and began taking her statement. Evelyn recounted that her husband Daniel Harper, an engineer at Fort Bliss, left home Friday evening, said he was meeting a colleague for work, and didn't return. Her voice was steady, clear, with pauses as she recalled details. Kincaid asked specifics: height, build, hair color, the Ford Galaxy he drove, license plate, identifying features, clothing when he left, light blue shirt, khaki pants, brown shoes, round-faced citizen watch. Every detail was carefully noted, organized in the report. Kincaid called Fort Bliss's HR department to verify. The base confirmed Harper had no scheduled trips or overtime, no record of his vehicle entering or leaving that evening. A colleague from his department said he saw Harper at the workshop before quitting time and heard nothing about any meeting. The verification was added: no scheduled work or travel. Moving to personal details, Evelyn said they'd been married over 10 years, no children, living stably in their suburban home. Daniel was calm, reserved, not one to travel far or socialize much. Financially, they had a small savings, no loans, no bank debts. Health-wise, he had mild stomach issues, never requiring long-term treatment. Kincaid noted no signs of voluntary departure, asking her to list close contacts, friends, colleagues. Evelyn named 3, a colleague at the base, a neighbor named Lewis, and Samuel Garza, a mechanic who occasionally fixed their car. As the interview stretched on, Kincaid opened a city map, folded it in half, marking relevant locations: the Harper residence, the road to Highway 54, Fort Bliss, and the Blue Mesa Bar, where Evelyn said her husband often met colleagues. He circled these in red, noting verify possible travel route. Beside it, he wrote a reminder: contact Fort Bliss, check main gate cameras, then paused, realizing that in 1977, the base's surveillance was limited. The session lasted over an hour. Evelyn provided a recent portrait of her husband, taken in his engineer's uniform at his office. Kincaid reviewed it, copied it, attached it to his notes. He asked one final question: when was the last time you spoke to him? Evelyn answered slowly: right before he left. He said he was meeting an old friend, wouldn't be late. Kincaid underlined that in his notebook. Leaving the office, Evelyn paused in the hallway, by a window overlooking the lot. Outside, sunlight hit the patchy shade of parked police cars. Kincaid gathered his papers, placed Daniel's photo on the desk beside the half-folded map. He reviewed the locations listed, then wrote a final note in his log. Prepare plan to sweep expected travel route. The next noon, Kincaid held a quick meeting with 2 officers in the station's small operations room. On the table was a large map covering northern El Paso, stretching to the New Mexico border. He circled main roads in red, marking the Harper residence, Fort Bliss, the Blue Mesa Bar, and the road to Highway 54. Pointing to the wide desert beyond the city's edge, where pavement thinned, he said they needed to focus on these junctions. A map copy was sent to Fort Bliss for coordination with military police, and the county's civilian volunteer team was contacted for support vehicles. By afternoon, the search plan was approved. 3 teams were formed, one for Highway 54 North, one for Rio Vista Station, the last gas station on the way to the wilderness, and one to survey dirt paths off Farm Road 2595. The next morning, the search convoy left early, carrying radios, binoculars, and water reserves. The sun was just up, its harsh light hitting the pale sand, wind stirring dust into streaks. Kincaid joined the first team, moving slowly along Highway 54, scanning both sides and marking suspicious stops. Temperatures climbed fast, the dashboard thermometer hitting over 90 degrees Fahrenheit, making movement tough. Southward, the second team checked Rio Vista Station, talking to the owner and 2 night shift workers. A middle-aged man recalled seeing a man in his 40s driving a light-colored Ford stop for gas that Friday night. He bought cigarettes and briefly spoke with a woman in a light-colored pickup nearby. They didn't catch the conversation, only that the man left heading north. The witness was noted, with a rough description and estimated time. Kincaid, receiving this over the radio, ordered it logged in the report. The third team, 2 officers and 3 volunteers, spread out along Farm Road 2595. A narrow dirt road serving farms and pipeline projects, stretching miles through empty desert. They drove pickups slowly, checking tire tracks, stopping at spots with disturbed soil or new ruts. By afternoon, stronger winds whipped up blinding dust, rendering most traces nearly impossible to spot. By day's end, the teams regrouped at the city's outskirts. The summary report was compiled that night. Kincaid read each point: no vehicle found, no physical signs of an accident, no witnesses beyond the Rio Vista Station account. Some areas were flagged for rechecking the next day in better light. He added lines to his notebook. Priority areas: Highway 54 from mile 18 to 25, land near Rio Vista, Farm Road 2595 turnoff. The next day, Fort Bliss Military Police joined, bringing long-range radios. Teams were reorganized, each with a separate map, cross-checking areas to avoid misses. Pickups trailed each other on red dirt, stopping every few hundred meters. Suspicious spots were marked with wooden stakes and photographed with film cameras. At noon, Kincaid stood gazing at the vast desert, barren, just sand, rocks and sparse shrubs, noting terrain too open, high chance of erased traces. By afternoon, stronger winds swept new sand over checked areas, covering footprints. Teams returned to the city at dusk. The day's report showed no vehicle, no new evidence, no clear traces of Harper in the initial search range. Kincaid stacked his notes on the desk, looking at the dust-streaked map, circling Rio Vista Station in red. The only place with a witness who saw something the night the man vanished. Over the next 3 days, searches continued in harsh conditions. Kincaid's team kept sweeping Highway 54, extending a few miles north, where terrain grew rougher, with cracked earth and low rock ridges. They moved slowly, scanning gaps between dunes with binoculars. The sun scorched the dry ground, heat blurring visibility. Dust caked patrol car windshields. On the 4th afternoon, as light softened, a volunteer radioed about a glint several hundred meters off the main road. The team stopped, moving toward the spot. In a flat stretch, they saw a metallic shape half buried in sand, a silver Ford Galaxy, dust coating half its body, parked askew on a small dirt path deep in the desert. Kincaid signaled to halt a few dozen meters away, ordering the team to stay back until the area was secured. He circled the vehicle, noting its position relative to the main road and its westward tilt. The driver's door was ajar, the windshield dusted lightly. The license plate matched the report. No other vehicle tracks were nearby, only tire marks leading in, stopping abruptly. No sign of a U-turn. Wind had left fine sand patterns, erasing most older traces. He radioed headquarters, reporting the vehicle matched Daniel Harper's missing person case and requesting a cordon and forensic team. While waiting, volunteers staked a 20-meter radius around the car, setting up a small tarp for shade in the searing desert heat. 2 officers took 4-angle film photos, noting time and wind direction. When forensics arrived, the sky glowed bronze, late sunlight casting a faint gold sheen on the Ford Galaxy, making it look pulled from memory. The forensic team took over, marking the area with white paint in a 20-meter radius, placing A, B, C, D signs for directional reference. The car remained untouched. They rephotographed the scene, measured the distance from the car's center to the main road, and logged coordinates on El Paso County's topographic map. The car's front faced northwest, slightly tilted on uneven ground. All 4 tires were intact, no punctures, suggesting no mechanical failure. The undercarriage was dust-caked but showed no collision marks with rocks or hard objects. The surrounding ground was hard, tire tracks shallow, indicating even weight distribution. No sudden braking. 2 meters from the front, wind left circular swirls. Technicians deemed them natural, not signs of a struggle. After exterior measurements, they checked the cabin. The driver's door, ajar, had intact hinges and lock. Inside, a thin dust layer coated the dashboard, seats, and steering wheel. The windshield was unbroken, rearview mirror fixed. Headlights were off, keys still in the ignition. No fresh scratches or prints were on the wheel. Under the driver's seat, only sand grains from shoe soles. On the passenger seat, forensics found a folded gas station map, free from local pumps. Its right corner was creased toward Highway 54, slightly smudged with sweat or oil. The map was lifted with wooden tongs, bagged, and labeled as evidence hash 1. The glove compartment on the right contained a small receipt, yellowed with age, its faded print still legible. Rio Vista Station. Gasoline, 10.25. At the bottom was the shift worker's code and date. This receipt was designated as evidence item number 2, sealed separately. Behind the passenger seat was an empty Lone Star beer bottle, with some sand stuck to its mouth. A technician used metal tongs to lift it, placed it in a nylon bag, and noted the potential for fingerprint preservation. Under a portable light, they observed faint smudges, but couldn't yet identify the type of prints. The bottle was labeled evidence number 3. In the gap between the seats, a long brown hair was caught on the edge of the seat upholstery. A technician used tweezers and a white card to collect the sample, placing it in a small glass tube, sealed immediately. The hair was marked as evidence number 4. No blood, no signs of a struggle, no scratches on the steering wheel or dashboard. The interior surfaces showed no signs of scraping or impact. The floor was dry, with no traces of liquid. The trunk was opened, revealing an empty space with intact paint. Outside the vehicle, the forensic team examined the marked radius around it. They scanned for metal, measured distances between the stakes. The ground was hard, with no second set of tire tracks beyond those of the Ford Galaxy. Near the car door, about half a meter away, was a partially burned cigarette butt, a common brand, half covered in sand. It was collected and labeled evidence number 5. Behind the car's rear, a small piece of nylon was unearthed from the sand, its origin unclear, bagged with surrounding soil. The entire process was documented with step-by-step photographs. Each collected item was sealed in individual bags, labeled with the responsible officer's initials and collection time. The evidence log included an El Paso, Rio Vista roadmap, number 1, gas station receipt, number 2, Lone Star beer bottle, number 3, long brown hair, number 4, and cigarette butt, number 5. Kincaid reviewed each item, signing off on the report. The forensic team added a note, No signs of violence, no blood, no skid marks or heavy impact. Vehicle stopped naturally. Once completed, they cleared the sand around the car, set additional stakes for reference photos aligned with the map. All details, vehicle orientation, ground tilt, distance to the road, wind conditions, and temperature, were recorded on the final page of the scene report. Kincaid closed the report, looked at the now covered Ford Galaxy, awaiting transport, and signed off on the completed examination, adding a final note. Evidence sealed, transferred to headquarters for storage and further analysis. As the evidence was sent to headquarters for analysis, Kincaid shifted the investigation toward Daniel Harper's background. The goal was to determine if the disappearance was voluntary or involved external influence. He and two officers split up to gather information at Fort Bliss and the Harper neighborhood. At the base's engineering department, colleagues described Harper as consistent, punctual, and rarely absent. He had no after-hours assignments, didn't use base vehicles, and never mentioned plans for that Friday evening. A fellow engineer said Harper usually went straight home after work, rarely staying for drinks or social events. HR confirmed his payroll account was normal, with no unusual withdrawals or leave requests. Kincaid summarized in the report, stable behavior, no signs of voluntary departure. That afternoon, the team visited Harper's neighborhood, interviewing the two closest neighbors. A middle-aged woman said Daniel was reserved, offering brief greetings when coming or going. The night he vanished, she only saw his car's headlights leave the garage and fade down the street. No unusual noises, no visitors afterward. Another neighbor, Lewis, said he occasionally helped Harper fix the lawnmower and mentioned a conversation weeks earlier about the Ford needing new spark plugs, but knew nothing more. Both described Harper as quiet, debt-free and conflict-free in the neighborhood. Kincaid spent much of the second day interviewing Evelyn. She cooperated, providing family financial details, a small savings account, no loans, regular monthly expenses. He reviewed recent withdrawals, finding no transactions beyond routine spending. Evelyn said her husband didn't gamble or keep separate funds. He hadn't used credit cards for hotel bookings or tickets. All financial data supported the theory that he hadn't planned to leave intentionally. Next, police contacted Harper's relatives in Dallas. His brother confirmed monthly calls with no disputes or issues. Harper never mentioned wanting to change jobs or divorce. He had no serious health problems. Kincaid noted, no motive for voluntary departure, no signs of psychological distress. That evening, a new detail emerged from a copy of the phone log, checked by the technical team from the local exchange. Among calls from the Harper home, a short call was made the evening before his disappearance, lasting under 2 minutes, to a number belonging to Samuel Garza, a mechanic living about 10 miles south. Kincaid cross-referenced Evelyn's earlier notes. Garza had repaired their car earlier that year, occasionally visiting to check the engine. No conflicts were recorded. However, the call's timing caught his attention. Kincaid requested further data on Garza, age 40, living with his elderly mother, running a small auto repair shop. His police record showed no convictions. The call's proximity to the disappearance was flagged in the interim report. Kincaid noted, verify purpose of contact, possible repair appointment. At day's end, Kincaid compiled all collected data. In the office, a board listed related individuals: Evelyn Harper, wife, Lewis, neighbor, 3 Fort Bliss colleagues, and Samuel Garza, mechanic. Under each name, he attached colored notes, indicating verification priority. The final report line was bolded. No motive for voluntary departure. Call to Garza, needs detailed review. The next morning, Kincaid held a brief meeting in the investigation room. On the board, he pinned the area map, scene photos, the Ford Galaxy image, and a list of related individuals. The preliminary report had enough baseline data to form initial hypotheses. Kincaid numbered and listed them: 1. Voluntary departure. 2. Accident. 3. Interference. He analyzed each in turn. The first hypothesis, voluntary departure, was quickly dismissed. No evidence suggested Harper planned to leave. He didn't withdraw money, take personal items, contact relatives, or leave a note. His work and family life were stable, with no signs of stress or serious conflict. Kincaid crossed out in red. No motivation. Voluntary departure, improbable. The second hypothesis, accident. Forensics thoroughly checked the scene. No collisions, no skid marks, no drop into low terrain. The area around the car was flat, easily visible, with no signs of another vehicle's impact. If Harper had an accident, a body or secondary evidence would likely be nearby, but the 20-mile search radius yielded nothing. The likelihood of a natural accident was rated low. The third hypothesis, interference, was marked high. The team focused on the timeline between Harper leaving home and the car's discovery. The over 2-day gap without information left all possibilities open. Physical evidence, the long hair in the car, the Rio Vista gas receipt, and the witness's account of a woman in a light-colored pickup suggested Harper met someone before vanishing. Kincaid requested a detailed timeline, time of departure, distance to the gas station, subsequent travel direction, time the car stopped. Data was cross-checked with the map. The drive from home to Rio Vista took under 40 minutes, while the scene was farther north. He marked the area between in red, sparsely populated, mostly dirt roads. That could be where something happened. Discussing human factors, Kincaid ordered a review of Samuel Garza's information. The brief call from the Harper home to Garza's number the evening before the disappearance was unexplained. Evelyn said Garza was just a familiar mechanic, but the call's timing was too close to the event. Police listed Garza as person to verify directly. A team was assigned to check his repair shop, noting its location, staff, and activity that weekend. Records showed Garza had no criminal history, but a 1972 fine for a bar disturbance. His shop was in an old industrial area, about 14 miles from the car's location, a distance Kincaid found notable. Alongside checking Garza, Kincaid requested the technical team to keep monitoring Evelyn's finances. No large transactions appeared, but he wanted to ensure no unusual spending or out-of-state account contacts. The Harper home's landline was temporarily monitored for incoming and outgoing calls. All contacts in the next week were logged and cross-checked periodically. Kincaid didn't inform Evelyn of this. He needed untainted data. That afternoon, he and an officer returned to Fort Bliss for a final check on Harper's movements. The entry control provided logs. The Ford Galaxy left the base at 5:12 p.m. Friday, with no return. Thus, Harper left work, went home, and left again that evening. A gap of under 3 hours. Kincaid pinned the car's photo to the board's corner, writing, "Time gap 3 hours. Unknown movement." In the office, fluorescent light illuminated the board covered in documents. The 3 hypotheses were color-coded: green for voluntary departure, yellow for accident, red for interference. Red dominated half the board. Below were names to verify. Evelyn Harper, reporter of the missing Samuel Garza. Last contact. Rio Vista gas station witness, who saw Harper that night. Kincaid ended the day with a note. Investigation focus relationship between victim and Garza. Continue monitoring Evelyn's financial activity. Review phone contacts for the past 3 weeks. Closing his notebook, he turned off the light, leaving the red-marked board faintly glowing in the dark of El Paso's investigation room. In the following weeks, Kincaid and the team's verification efforts yielded no further results. Samuel Garza's repair shop was thoroughly checked. No evidence or witnesses suggested he met Daniel Harper at the time of the disappearance. Garza cooperated, detailing his Friday schedule. Shop closed at 6. Then he was home with his mother. A neighbor's statement aligned, though no one could confirm exact times. Kincaid requested a fingerprint comparison from the beer bottle against local police data, but results returned no match. Other evidence, hair, cigarette butt, receipt, remained disconnected clues. A forensic report arrived the next month. No human blood was found in the car. No signs of a struggle. Soil on the undercarriage matched the desert type around Highway 54, with no specific location pinpointed. Nothing in the dry report lines brought the team closer to answers. Kincaid read it, pencil tapping the desk, then wrote briefly, "No forensic link, case stagnant." Evelyn Harper's financial and phone activity, monitored for weeks, showed no anomalies. Outgoing calls were mostly to relatives, none to Garza after the initial interview. Household expenses remained consistent. Kincaid sensed something off, but lacked concrete evidence to expand the investigation. He requested a check on Garza's bank account, but it showed no large transactions or unusual transfers. Returning to Rio Vista Station for more witnesses, the man who gave the initial statement said he couldn't recall details, and the woman in the light-colored pickup might have been a passerby. No cameras, no records, only fading memories weeks later. Police canvassed neighborhoods along the route, asking shops and guard posts, but no one recognized Daniel Harper or his car. The broader the search, the thinner the leads. After nearly 2 months, search funding dwindled. The volunteer team couldn't sustain initial numbers due to harsh weather. The vast desert and high temperatures made fieldwork nearly futile. Continued efforts drained manpower with no results. Finally, Kincaid halted field searches, keeping a small team for data compilation and storage. The team's final meeting occurred in the small room, pale yellow light on the note-covered board. Papers marked Rio Vista, Garza, Evelyn Harper were removed, stacked into a thin file. Kincaid spoke briefly, voice steady but heavy. Insufficient evidence to determine a crime. Investigation suspended. A young officer asked about monitoring Garza further, but Kincaid shook his head. No warrant, no legal basis. That weekend, Daniel Harper's missing person case was temporarily closed. The nearly 100-page file included scene reports, photos, statements, forensic reports, and analysis results. Kincaid signed the final page, stamping pending, insufficient evidence. He paused before closing the yellow folder, eyes lingering on Harper's engineer uniform photo. Outside, afternoon sun cast a faint glow over El Paso, desert dust floating in the air. In that light, the case file's lines faded into silence, marking an unresolved disappearance. December 1977, after formal investigation efforts ended, all materials related to Daniel Harper's disappearance were transferred to the El Paso Police Department's archives. Case file #77104, housed in a yellow folder nearly an inch thick, was labeled Missing Person, Unresolved. Attached were 5 sealed evidence bags, numbered #2477, containing the map, receipt, beer bottle, long hair, and cigarette butt. All were stored in a sturdy cardboard box, labeled in red, "Do not open without authorization." On the day of the transfer, Kincaid was present to sign the archive report. He stood before rows of green-painted steel cabinets, where hundreds of unsolved cases lay dormant. An archive clerk noted the storage location, Shelf 4, Row C, Section, Missing Persons, 1970s. The file was placed in a middle slot, among other cases from the same era. As the cabinet door closed, the faint metallic sound echoed in the quiet space, marking the moment the case officially entered indefinite suspension. In the years that followed, no updates emerged. Officers involved in the case transferred or retired. Daniel Harper's name faded from annual reports, reduced to a code in El Paso County's list of unresolved missing persons. Evidence was inventoried yearly, but saw no new analysis requests. The sealed bags remained untouched, their wax seals yellowing over time. By the mid-1980s, the archive system moved to a new facility on the city's outskirts. Case file 77104 was among the first batch transferred by truck with hundreds of others. The inventory clerk noted briefly, "Condition intact." No one reopened the box. No one requested additional data to the administrative system. It was just another long-dormant missing person case. In the 1990s, electronic archiving began, but most old files remained on paper. The Harper file was briefly scanned for coding, but the images were blurry. Kincaid's signature barely legible. The original stayed in the steel cabinet, gathering dust with hundreds of others. Many younger staff didn't even know it existed. In the annual inventory, the only note by case 77104 repeated, no new activity. The disappearance of Daniel Harper, once one of 1977's most noted cases, was gradually forgotten amid stacks of newer files. The archive room maintained a steady temperature year-round, its dim fluorescent light casting a faint glow on the aging cabinets. In that space, evidence box #2477 sat silently, its seals unbroken, waiting in quiet for years, as if Daniel Harper's entire story had been locked away in the darkness of time. 42 years passed since case 77-104 was placed on the metal shelf. In March 2019, at the Texas Rangers office in Austin, a review program for unresolved missing person cases launched. The Cold Case Initiative focused on files with intact, unopened evidence suitable for modern DNA analysis. Hundreds of files from across Texas were retrieved, including a short list from El Paso County. On the classification board, case 77-104, Daniel Harper, was marked in red ink. Preserved evidence, unopened. Detective Marla Vance, a 20-year veteran investigator, was tasked with screening files. She flipped through aged documents, their paper yellowed, typed and handwritten text faded. Reaching box 77-104, she paused. Inside, 5 evidence bags retained their wax seals, Sergeant Raymond Kincaid's signature still clear. The date December 1977 sat centered on the red seal, untorn, edges intact. Vance noted, condition, excellent, suitable for DNA extraction. In her summary report, she noted the Harper case stood out, evidence directly tied to the victim, uncontaminated, never opened. Notably, the evidence list included long brown hair, collected from vehicle interior. She immediately contacted the Texas Department of Public Safety's lab in Austin, requesting DNA analysis of the hair using modern STR methods. Technicians received the sample in early April, conducting extraction in a clean room. 3 weeks later, results arrived. The analysis report stated, sample DNA is female. Genetic sequence matches Evelyn Harper, victim's wife, on file from a 2008 medical test. The bolded final line, match confirmed, probability, 99.98%. Marla Vance placed the results on her desk beside Daniel Harper's black and white photo from the original file. In it, he smiled faintly, Fort Bliss Engineering Division sign in the background. The result didn't prove a crime, but opened a new possibility. Evelyn Harper was in the car where the victim vanished. Vance drafted an initial report, sending a copy of the DNA results to the El Paso County DA's office, requesting the case be reopened. On May 14, 2019, the order to reactivate case 77-104 was signed. Daniel Harper's disappearance, dormant for over 4 decades, was reclassified as an active cold case investigation. At the El Paso PD, archivists retrieved the evidence box from the shelf. Dust coated it, the red label darkened, but "Do not open without authorization" remained intact. They placed it on a verification table, checked seal codes, and signed off on its condition before handing it to the new investigative team. Marla Vance traveled to El Paso to receive the original file. In the old room where Kincaid once worked, she opened each report, organizing them chronologically: initial statement, area map, witness accounts, scene photos, 1977 forensic conclusions. Every page was rescanned and logged into a digital database. She highlighted key details: Rio Vista gas receipt, beer bottle, hair, and the witness account of a woman in a light-colored pickup. These were fragments of an incomplete puzzle. In the first meeting with the DA's representative, Vance presented the DNA results and reinvestigation plan. She emphasized, the hair confirmed Evelyn Harper's presence in the Ford Galaxy, unnoted in her original statement. Additionally, the car's location in a remote area off Highway 54, far from logical destinations, suggested the victim didn't stop there naturally. Her report concluded, possible foul play involving spouse or known associate. That evening, in a temporary office at El Paso PD, Marla sat alone, studying a photo of the old desert scene. Sand, wind, the solitary car in an empty expanse, frozen in time. She wrote in her log, "Case reopened. Next steps, reconstruct timeline. Identify contact between victim and spouse prior to disappearance." After nearly half a century, Daniel Harper's file left obscurity. Evidence bags were placed in a specialized cabinet, newly sealed, prepped for modern reanalysis. On the digital file's cover, an update read, "Case hash 77104, status reopened, May 2019. Once reopened, Detective Marla Vance began reconstructing Daniel Harper's movements on the night he vanished. She requested 1977 topographic maps and traffic records from the Texas Department of Transportation, cross-referencing them with current satellite data to track area changes. The map room provided a wax paper original, its lines faded, but showing key routes. Highway 54 running north-south through Rio Vista, branching into rural paths toward Farm Road, 2595. Marginal notes marked gas stations and sparse farming areas from that period. On her desk, Vance laid the 1977 map beside a digital one, marking relevant sites in red marker. Harper's home, Fort Bliss, Blue Mesa Bar, where he planned to meet a colleague, Rio Vista Station, and the Ford Galaxy's Discovery site. Connecting the dots, the route should have gone through downtown, along Route 375 to the commercial district, yet the car was found far north in unpopulated desert, nearly 30 miles off course. She noted, "Vehicle location inconsistent with intended destination, direction anomaly confirmed." She reviewed Evelyn's original statement. Evelyn said her husband left after dinner to meet someone, but didn't mention traveling far from the city. She claimed ignorance about the car's desert location. Comparing with map data, Vance noted the car's site was only accessible via a narrow dirt path to Farm Road 2595, used by local farmers. There was no logical reason for Harper to drive there unless lured or misdirected. Using simulation software, she mapped the route. Harper's home to Rio Vista took about 40 minutes. Rio Vista to the car site took 25 more if direct. The entire trip was under an hour and 15 minutes. Yet the original file noted the car was found at least 2 days after he left. This suggested it was abandoned early, possibly that night. Vance noted vehicle likely abandoned within first hours, suggests deliberate stop. She requested archived records on Farm Road 2595 from the late 1970s. Data showed it was public land mixed with small farms, low traffic, used for agricultural transport and pipeline projects. Criminal incidents were rare, only minor thefts of construction materials. The terrain was sandy gravel, prone to tire tracks but quickly erased by wind, explaining the lack of traces in 1977. While cross-referencing, Vance noticed a detail in Kincaid's measurements, vehicle facing northwest. Per the map, this didn't align with exiting Farm Road 2595, but pointed toward open land between low hills. She drew a connecting line, noting a 35-degree deviation, and marked a question. Harper likely didn't stop to rest or navigate, but because someone was waiting. From this, Vance hypothesized the victim may have been lured off his usual route by a meeting. A familiar voice or message could have led him without suspicion. The map confirmed only one path led to the car's site, a 2-mile stretch where another vehicle could wait unnoticed from Highway 54. In her internal report, she wrote, "Victim likely lured to isolated area under pretext of meeting known individual." To support this, Vance requested old city planning records to check for 1977 structures near Farm Road 2595. Records showed a temporary transport company warehouse, operational until 1978, then abandoned, about 1.5 miles west of the car site. She circled it on the map, noting abandoned storage facility, possible meeting point. Vance analyzed time and distance. If Harper left home around 8 p.m. and stopped at Rio Vista past 9 o'clock, he could reach Farm Road 2595 by 10 o'clock. The desert was nearly empty of traffic then. The car's abandonment without robbery or crash signs suggested Harper left it under controlled conditions, voluntarily or persuaded. She typed, "No forced entry, victim possibly left vehicle voluntarily under influence or trust." In a team analysis meeting, Vance presented the route simulation. On screen, a red line showed the expected path, a green one, the actual path to the car site. Between them was a vast, empty desert with no residences. The team agreed it wasn't random. Vance concluded, "We need to review all records on Farm Road 2595, especially civilian or industrial activity, around August 1977. She sent a formal request to El Paso County for 1975, 1978 land ownership and construction records. She also tasked technicians with reconstructing a 3D terrain model using NASA's historical satellite imagery. When the screen displayed the 1977 desert, a thin road cutting through barren land, Vance marked the endpoint with a stylus, noting, "Vehicle discovery site not on any logical road. Victim was intentionally led there. Investigation focus, Farm Road 2595." From the route reconstruction, Marla Vance returned to a pivotal point, Rio Vista Station. The original file noted a witness seeing Harper talking to a woman in a light-colored pickup. Vance sought this man, hoping he recalled details after 40 years. After phone calls and cross-referencing old personnel records, she located Thomas Avery, a former station worker, now in Las Cruces, New Mexico. One June 2019 morning, she drove nearly 3 hours to meet him. Avery, over 70, greeted her in a small home, a photo of the old station on the wall. When mentioning Daniel Harper, he paused, then said he remembered the man with the silver Ford. He recalled a hot night, the station nearly closed, Harper filling up and buying cigarettes. While waiting for payment, Harper glanced at a light-colored pickup nearby, where a woman sat in the driver's seat. Avery said, "I saw them talk briefly, but couldn't hear." He smiled, returned to his car, and drove north. Vance showed Avery black and white photos, including Evelyn Harper's from the late 1970s. He studied them, squinting, then nodded slowly. "Hair's shorter now, but the face is right. I think that's the woman in the pickup." She had him sign a statement, confirming the identification, recording the session. Avery noted the pickup might be a Chevrolet CC-K, light-colored, hard to confirm in the dark. Though memory faded, his confirmation was critical. Independent evidence placed Evelyn Harper near the disappearance. Back in El Paso, Vance reviewed Harper's old bank records. Working with Texas's financial archives, she accessed 1970s microfilm transactions. A record from August 24, 1977, 2 days before Harper vanished, showed withdrawal, $1,200, teller 03. A large sum for the era's average income. The account was joint, Daniel and Evelyn Harper. The withdrawal was in person, signed E. Harper. The microfilm copy was printed, stamped. Marla noted, significant cash withdrawal pre-disappearance. No corresponding expenditure afterward. Verify purpose. Concurrently, she revisited Samuel Garza's file, noted repeatedly in Kincaid's records. Vance requested current demographic data. Garza, born 1939, lived in New Mexico, 2 hours from El Paso. Occupation, retired mechanic. No criminal record. She noted, related individual re-interview needed. Before contacting him, Vance reviewed Garza's 1977 statements. He admitted knowing Harper through car maintenance, but denied meeting him during the disappearance. His statement had no clear contradictions, but the call from the Harper home to Garza's number was never explained. She investigated further. The telecom department provided a microfiche copy of the original call log, a 1-minute 42-second call from the Harper phone at 7:48 p.m. to Garza's shop line. No return calls followed. Vance wrote, possible contact prior to meeting, needs context. From new data, the 1977 evening clarified, Harper left home, called Garza, met a woman identified as Evelyn at Rio Vista, then drove to Farm Road 2595, where the car was found. These points formed a coherent sequence, convincing Vance the disappearance wasn't accidental. To strengthen this, she requested a facial recognition match of Evelyn's young photos against modern software. Black and white images were digitized, aligned, and compared to her current color photos. Results matched at 92%. Vance noted, facial match confirmed, probability high. Though not legal proof, it supported further inquiry. At night, in the El Paso PD office, Vance studied a board with dozens of notes. At its center, Daniel Harper, Evelyn Harper, Samuel Garza. She connected them with red string marking 3 times 7:48 p.m., call 9:10 p.m. Rio Vista Station, 10 p.m., Farm Road 2595. At the board's top, she wrote in black marker, sequence established. Next, verify connection between E. Harper and S. Garza prior to August 1977. In August 2019, as Marla Vance's investigation neared its final data collection, an unexpected event occurred. On the morning of the 17th, the El Paso County Sheriff's Office received a call from a gas pipeline construction site near Farm Road 2595, the area identified as Daniel Harper's final route endpoint. The site foreman reported that an excavator, digging into hard soil at nearly 1.5 meters, uncovered a buried metal box. Suspecting industrial waste, workers halted and called police. The information reached Vance's team. She and 2 forensic technicians headed to the site. Upon arrival, the site was temporarily cordoned off. The metal box, partially exposed in the dug-up soil, was about 1/2 meter square, silver gray, heavily rusted. Old industrial sealing marks clung to the lid, indicating long burial. Vance ordered a field tent and manual excavation of the remaining soil to avoid damage. Surrounding soil was sampled, numbered. When the last dirt was cleared, the box was lifted onto a nylon tarp, photographed throughout. The box was opened under forensic technicians and county police supervision. Inside, layers of old brown tarpaulin, caked with dried mud, were unwrapped, releasing a musty odor. Beneath was a collection of brittle, fully decomposed human bones, jumbled from folding. Among them was a glinting metal object, a men's wristwatch, steel band, cracked face, hands stopped at 9:15. Nearby was a plain gold ring, inscribed inside, E2D, 1964. Technicians sealed each item, noting bone fragments, sample A1, wristwatch, sample A2, ring, sample A3. The box was transported to the Texas Rangers Forensic Lab in Austin via specialized vehicle. In her report, Vance wrote, discovery of possible human remains in proximity to previous vehicle recovery site. Evidence condition consistent with long-term burial. Initial analysis confirmed the bones belonged to an adult male, matching Daniel Harper's 1977 description. DNA from the femur, compared to his brother's, yielded a 99.99% match. The bolded conclusion, remains identified as Daniel Harper. Identifying the victim ended over 40 years of uncertainty. Kincaid once wrote that all traces seemed swallowed by the desert wind. Now, that desert had given answers. Deeper analysis found a vertical crack on the rear skull, with smooth radiating fractures, not from soil pressure, but a hard-edged object's impact. Forensic conclusion, cause of death, blunt force trauma to occipital region, no bullet or knife marks. Estimated time of death, late August 1977, aligning with Harper's disappearance. Vance read the results, struck by the photo of the metal box on the lab table. It was found just over a mile from the Ford Galaxy's 1977 site. The careful burial, sealed with tarpaulin and wire, suggested intentional concealment, not random disposal. She wrote in her interim report, post-mortem concealment indicated, burial container intentionally prepared. Beyond the remains, the watch and ring were secondary identification. Harper's brother, invited to verify, confirmed the watch as a 1975 birthday gift and the ring inscribed at 2D, 1964, as Daniel's wedding band, matching marriage records. These small items undeniably proved the man who left home one summer night in 1977, never left the El Paso desert. With DNA confirmation, the case shifted from missing person to homicide investigation. In an internal update, Vance wrote, Case hash 77104, homicide body concealment. Old evidence bags were reopened for comparison. Soil from the Ford Galaxy's undercarriage, reanalyzed with elemental spectroscopy, matched the mineral composition of soil around the burial site, proving a direct link and reinforcing the theory that Harper was killed nearby. The forensic lab completed its report within 2 weeks. The final conclusion stated, mechanism of death, cranial trauma from blunt force impact. Evidence indicates the body was moved and concealed in a metal box post-mortem. No signs of fire, explosion, or toxins. The full forensic file was returned to Marla Vance by late August. She placed the report atop the thick case file, looking at the words Daniel Harper, missing 1977 on the yellow cover, then struck through missing with red ink. In that day's internal memo, she wrote, victim's remains identified, cause of death, blunt impact, circumstance, intentional concealment. Case officially redirected to homicide and body disposal investigation. After the forensic results confirmed the remains in the metal box as Daniel Harper's, Marla Vance moved to verify all preserved evidence from 1977. Her goal was to connect disparate clues into a coherent chain linking the victim, relatives, and individuals noted in the file. The first item examined was the Lone Star beer bottle from the Ford Galaxy, evidence item 3, seal hash 2477. Back then, the lab only noted faint fingerprints, lacking technology for analysis. Vance sent the bottle to Texas's Digital Fingerprint Lab, which used the new AFIS system to match old prints against national databases. Results returned after a week, 3 clear fingerprints on the bottle's neck, 2 belonging to the driver, confirmed as Daniel Harper, and the third matching Samuel Garza, the mechanic listed for verification by Sergeant Kincaid. The match was 100%, no discrepancies. She noted in the report, match confirmed, Garza, Samuel. Possible contact with victim vehicle. This proved Garza had direct contact with the car, or was at the scene before it was abandoned. The finding forced Vance to center him in the expanded investigation. Concurrently, she reviewed old financial data. From the earlier microfilm, the $1,200 cash withdrawal by Evelyn Harper, 2 days before her husband's disappearance, remained unexplained. To trace the money's purpose, Vance requested 1977 El Paso purchase records, focusing on industrial supply stores. One store, Tex Metal Supply Company, retained handwritten carbon sales logs. A page dated August 25 listed, 1 metal storage box, 30x 40-inch, paid cash. The buyer's name was abbreviated, E. Harper. The handwriting was slanted, with unusually bold strokes. Vance sent the receipt copy to the handwriting analysis lab. Experts compared it to Evelyn's bank signatures and 1977 statements. Conclusion: handwriting consistent, probability of same author, 95%. This meant Evelyn purchased a metal box matching the one containing her husband's remains. The report's final verification: purchase predates victim's disappearance by 2 days. Reading this, Vance paused, taking a deep breath. She had 2 clear pieces, Garza's fingerprints in the car, and Evelyn's purchase of the burial container. To strengthen the case, Vance reviewed household items collected post-disappearance. Among them was a set of unsent handwritten letters, overlooked in a desk drawer, labeled Exhibit as 77. Deemed unimportant then, they were stored for signature comparison. Reading closely, Vance found one letter with vague lines like, "I just want everything to end peacefully, no more suffering for anyone." Unsigned, its tone and handwriting suggested stress. She sent the letters for criminal psychology and modern handwriting analysis. The report concluded all letters were written by Evelyn Harper, with ink, paper, and style matching 1977. The wording indicated fear mixed with remorse. An analyst noted, text content implies awareness of an upcoming event, possibly premeditated or feared consequence. Vance underlined awareness of an upcoming event in red. To her, this wasn't just handwriting evidence, but a psychological sign of foreknowledge. She compiled the new data: Garza's fingerprints on the bottle, Evelyn's box purchase receipt, the letters with matching handwriting. Each detail was organized in an evidence chart. In the connection column, she drew red lines. Garza, present in the vehicle; Evelyn, purchased the container, and wrote ambiguous letters, both tied directly to the burial site. The timeline clarified. August 25th, Evelyn withdrew cash. Same day bought the metal box. Evening of August 26th, Daniel Harper left home. August 27th, car abandoned, later body buried in the box. Completing the evidence chart, Vance submitted it to the El Paso County DA's office. In the accompanying summary, she wrote, "Physical evidence links victim's vehicle to Samuel Garza and burial container to Evelyn Harper. Behavioral evidence supports involvement or knowledge of concealment." Conclusion: joint participation likely in post-mortem concealment of body. She closed the file, placing it on the desk, a heavy feeling filling the room. 4 decades ago, the desert hid this story under sand. Now, small pieces of evidence revealed a carefully planned conspiracy where the victim was not only killed, but deliberately buried with lies spanning nearly half a century. With forensic results confirmed and the evidence chain tightening, Marla Vance requested a summons to formally question Samuel Garza. Now 79, he lived in a Silver City, New Mexico nursing home. Wheelchair-bound, with frail health but a sharp mind, he met Vance and a local officer on the morning of October 3, 2019. The interview was recorded with a legal representative present. The small room had soft light, a fan humming steadily. When shown the reason, Garza looked at Daniel Harper's old photo and smiled wearily. "I knew this man. It's been a long time." Initially cooperative, he said he was just a familiar mechanic, repaired Harper's car a few times, nothing more. Vance placed the fingerprint analysis on the table, pointing to the 100% match with his name. Garza fell silent, then nodded slightly. "I was there," he said, voice hoarse. The short statement weighed heavily in the room. Vance gave him a brief break, then asked, "Why were you there on the night of August 26, 1977? Garza gripped his wheelchair, speaking slowly. "Evelyn called me. She said she needed to meet, had an issue with her husband. I didn't think it would turn out like this." He recounted that evening Evelyn visited his shop before closing, saying her husband suspected something, was angry, and she wanted to settle things. She asked Garza to come along as a witness if an argument arose. Knowing both spouses, he agreed, thinking it was a family matter. He followed Harper in his pickup to Rio Vista, then to the dirt path off Farm Road 2595. There, Harper stopped, stepped out and asked, "What are you doing here?" The exchange grew tense. Garza said, "He came at me, grabbed my collar. I pushed him away, not meaning to hit. But he slipped, fell. His head hit the car hard." Vance asked for details on the fall. Gesturing, Garza mimicked. Harper was pushed back, his head striking the metal edge behind the car door. Then he collapsed. "I thought he was just knocked out. I shook him, called his name. No response." After minutes, Evelyn approached, looked at him, then turned away. She said, "No one can see him like this. Help me," Garza said. He panicked, but helped, believing it was an accident. They moved Harper's body to the car's back seat, drove to a nearby empty lot. Evelyn said she had a metal box in her pickup, bought days earlier, and they buried the body that night. "I thought she'd call the police later," Garza said, eyes on the floor. Vance asked, "Did anyone else know?" Garza shook his head. "No one." I stayed silent. Evelyn said she'd handle it, and I believed her. When the disappearance hit the news, I was scared. I closed my shop for days, acted like I never met them. Vance pressed, "Why stay silent all these years?" Garza replied softly, "Who'd believe a poor mechanic? They'd think I was the killer, and she told me to stay quiet for their daughter. I didn't want to hurt the kid." The interview lasted over 2 hours, recorded on audio and video. When asked to sign his statement, Garza agreed, hand trembling slightly. He added details. Evelyn prepared the metal box, wrapped it in tarpaulin herself, while he dug the hole and helped cover it. He didn't recall the exact spot because it was pitch dark, just car headlights. Vance didn't interrupt, letting him finish. As the session ended, Garza leaned back, sighing. I didn't mean to kill anyone, but I know I hid a sin my whole life. Vance thanked him for cooperating, noting his statement would be cross-checked with forensic evidence. Garza nodded, exhausted, saying finally, I just hope he's at peace. 3 days later, as the team prepared for a follow-up, the nursing home reported Garza's death in his sleep from heart failure. The medical report confirmed natural causes. His recorded statement and signed affidavit were sent to the El Paso County DA, stamped primary witness statement. In her log that day, Vance wrote one line, Garza confessed presence and involvement in concealment. Deceased before court testimony. Beside it, she drew a thin red line connecting the last two names on the investigation board. Evelyn Harper, Samuel Garza. 2 weeks after receiving Garza's recorded and signed statement, the Texas Rangers Office finalized a comprehensive report for the El Paso County DA. Physical evidence, fingerprints, metal box receipt, handwritten letters, and Garza's confession formed a cohesive chain. On October 21, 2019, the chief prosecutor approved charging Evelyn Harper with 2 counts: obstruction of justice and conspiracy to commit manslaughter. An arrest warrant was issued by the El Paso County Court that day, marking an interstate investigation expansion, as Evelyn resided in Las Cruces, New Mexico. The next morning, a task force of 3 Texas Rangers and local police executed the arrest. Evelyn's home was in a quiet neighborhood, 10 minutes from downtown. As patrol cars arrived, dawn light hit red-tiled roofs and leaf-strewn yards. Vance was present, standing back as police knocked. An elderly woman with silver hair, wearing a gray wool shawl, opened the door. Hearing the warrant read, she stood still for seconds, then said softly, I understand. No resistance, no questions, just a glance around her small home before asking for her coat. Police allowed her a small handbag. While an officer checked the living room, they found an unsealed envelope on a desk beside a notebook and fountain pen. The letter's opening line, if someone finds this, know I never wanted him dead. The rest trailed off, ink still wet. Vance ordered it photographed and sealed as new evidence. It had no recipient, just brief lines of remorse and fear. Handwriting was verified on site as Evelyn's. After procedures, she was escorted to the car silently. Neighbors gathered, watching curiously as the convoy left. Evelyn said nothing, her gaze blank out the window. En route to El Paso, Vance, in the front seat, saw Evelyn in the rearview mirror, hands in her lap, fingering a faded wedding ring. The sight recalled an old file photo. Evelyn's young face beside Daniel Harper on their wedding day, eyes then bright and confident. At the El Paso County Sheriff's Office, intake followed protocol. Evelyn Harper, 73, was detained for questioning. She was granted a lawyer and medical care due to her age. New evidence, the unfinished letter, notebook and pen, was sent for analysis. Preliminary reports confirmed the ink and handwriting matched the 1977 letters. The notebook, amid mundane entries, had a line from weeks earlier, "You can't escape the past forever." On October 23, the case file was transferred from the Texas Rangers to the El Paso County DA for prosecution preparation. The over 200-page report included all forensic reports, statements, scene photos, and DNA results. Vance's final summary line, evidence chain intact, direct witness deceased, remaining suspect in custody. She signed, time-stamped and handed the file to the chief prosecutor. Leaving the detention center that afternoon, late sunlight bathed the long hallway, reflecting off frosted glass. In the cell behind, Evelyn Harper sat against the wall, silently staring at her ringless hand. After 42 years, the woman who once silently faced every question was now the primary suspect in the case she first reported. Evelyn Harper's trial began the morning of February 10, 2020, at the El Paso County Courthouse. The courtroom was busier than usual, filled with local reporters and a few retired officers from the 1977 investigation. The 73-year-old woman entered in simple attire, silver hair neatly tied, hands clasped tightly. Beside her was a state-appointed lawyer. Before her, Chief Prosecutor Douglas Reeve opened the session, summarizing the over 40-year investigation, calling it one of the county's longest unresolved missing person cases solved. Reeve presented key evidence: DNA-confirmed remains, forensic report on cranial trauma, Garza's fingerprints on the beer bottle, Evelyn's signed metal box receipt, and letters showing fear and remorse. He displayed desert scene photos, route maps, and a timeline from August 26, 1977, to the body's discovery. Each piece was cross-referenced with Garza's pre-death confession. "We have no living direct witness," Reeves said firmly. "But this evidence chain aligns perfectly with Garza's confession and the defendant's actions. No one but Evelyn Harper had the motive, opportunity, and means to conceal her husband's death." He concluded briefly, "This is no longer a missing person case. This is obstruction of justice spanning 4 decades." Defense attorney Linda Cortez didn't deny Evelyn's role in hiding the body, but argued she had no intent to kill. Based on Garza's statement, Daniel Harper died accidentally during a scuffle, with no evidence Evelyn planned or initiated an attack. "She was wrong not to call police," Cortez said. "But that mistake stemmed from fear, not deliberate crime." She presented medical records showing Evelyn's chronic heart condition, long-term sedative use, mental instability, and noted Garza, the only clarifier, was deceased. Throughout questioning, Evelyn remained silent, nodding only when her lawyer prompted. When the prosecution asked directly, "Did you ever return to where your husband's body was buried?" she replied briefly, "No, I couldn't." Her weak but clear voice silenced the room. The trial lasted 3 days. The jury reviewed all documents and indirect witnesses. On the 3rd day, the prosecution requested convictions for obstruction of justice and conspiracy to commit manslaughter. The defense sought leniency due to age, health, and Evelyn's cooperation. On February 13th, Judge Reading delivered the verdict, reading slowly. "The court confirms Evelyn Harper concealed a body and obstructed a criminal investigation, but insufficient evidence supports intentional homicide. Considering her age, health, and cooperation, the court sentences her to 10 years probation and 5 years supervised release, with the condition of not leaving Texas during the term." He paused, then added, "You stayed silent too long. Justice is late, but it must arrive." No murmurs filled the courtroom. Evelyn bowed her head, gripping the table. Cortez touched her shoulder. The prosecutor quietly packed documents. Leaving the courtroom, a reporter asked Evelyn's thoughts. She replied, "I've waited for this day 40 years. The next day, the Texas Rangers and El Paso County DA held a press conference announcing the final outcome. A large screen displayed, Case #77104, Homicide, Solved 2019. The report confirmed Daniel Harper's case as solved, death by violent impact, with concealment directly tied to Evelyn Harper and Samuel Garza. Local news called it one of El Paso's longest cases closed by scientific evidence. In the file, the verdict's final page bore signatures from the judge, prosecutor, and Texas Rangers representative. Under case status, bold text read, "Homicide, Solved, 2019. Below, Vance's handwritten note, "Evidence never vanishes. It only waits to be found." In March 2020, the Texas Rangers publicly released the final investigation report on Daniel Harper's case. At an Austin press conference, Detective Marla Vance presented the case's resolution to the media. Behind the podium, a screen showed white text on black, Case #77104. Homicide, Solved, 2019. Vance opened the newly bound file, reading briefly. DNA, fingerprints, witness statements, and forensic evidence confirmed Daniel Harper was killed in late August 1977. The body's concealment was deliberate. The case is closed after 42 years of intermittent investigation. No fanfare, just keyboard clicks and camera flashes. In the Cuenda, a reporter asked if Vance felt satisfied with the case's end. She replied curtly, "There's no satisfaction in this work. We just put the truth back where it belongs." The quote appeared in many evening news reports, a simple summary of the case's long journey. Post-conference, all evidence was transferred to the Texas Rangers Permanent Archive in Waco. Bags labeled #2477, map, receipt, beer bottle, hair, cigarette butt, plus the metal box and victims' belongings, were cleaned, sealed in specialized containers, and paired with digital copies. Each was labeled, "Preserved for record, do not destroy." The paper file was scanned into a PDF, stored in the national database. Vance signed the transfer log, her final case note, evidence chain complete. Case closed. The El Paso County DA notified the victim's family. Now just Harper's two brothers in Dallas. They were invited to retrieve the wedding ring and watch, the only items returned per protocol. The quiet handover occurred in a small courthouse room. The younger brother held the gold ring, eyes tearing. He whispered, 42 years, and my brother's finally named right, not just missing. A week later, a copy of Case 77-104 was archived at El Paso PD's central storage. The steel cabinet holding the 1977 file was reopened. Inside, row C, fourth slot, still bore a faint ink mark. Harper, Daniel, missing person. The archivist replaced it with Harper, Daniel, homicide. As the door closed, the metallic sound rang dryly, echoing the sound from 40 years ago when Kincaid first stored the file. Vance stayed in El Paso a few more days to finalize the post-investigation report. She visited the site near Farm Road, 2595, where the pipeline project was now complete, leaving only a marker at the coordinates where the metal box was found. The desert stretched before her, wind stirring sand across the horizon. She stood for a long moment, watching the late-day sunlight glide over the ground. In her notebook, Vance wrote a final memo. No case is truly closed, only stories told later than expected. Time doesn't erase truth, it just hides it where people seldom look. On April 1, 2020, the El Paso County Court issued an official administrative notice, Case #77104 closed. The case was recorded in the Texas Rangers Annual Report as a notable success in the state's cold case program. On the report's final page, under acknowledgement, a small note read, "Dedicated to the persistence of law enforcement officers from 1977 to 2019. Leaving El Paso, Marla Vance carried a single copy of the final report. In the car, she turned on the radio, its weak signal mixing wind sounds with static. Behind her, the desert stretched on, sunlight reflecting off silver sand streaks, mirroring the scene Daniel Harper left 42 years ago. In that silent expanse, she thought of those buried by time, both victims and truth seekers. The case was closed, but on the Texas Rangers office digital board, the status glowed, Case #77104, closed, solved. The story of Daniel Harper's case, a man who vanished in El Paso in 1977, only resolved over 40 years later, is not just a family tragedy, but a reflection of a familiar issue in modern American life: silence and distrust among people. Evelyn Harper, the wife who reported her husband missing, lived nearly half a century with the secret of his death. Afraid, she chose to hide the truth rather than face it, and that fear delayed justice for over 4 decades. Today in America, many live in smaller versions of this story, hiding what needs to be said, avoiding responsibility, or believing time will erase everything. But truth doesn't fade with years. It waits for those brave enough to step into the light, as Detective Marla Vance did, tirelessly tracing every clue, from a single hair to an old receipt, to find answers for the departed. The practical lesson from this story is, in a modern society where information can be distorted and trust easily shaken, honesty and accountability remain irreplaceable moral foundations. Learn from Evelyn's mistake. Concealment, whether from fear or to protect others, ultimately brings consequences greater than the initial wrong. And learn from Marla Vance. Patience, integrity, and belief in truth's value are the strengths that overcome time's oblivion. In today's America, where justice sometimes arrives late, the Harper case reminds us, as long as someone searches, the truth will never be lost. Thank you for following the over 40-year journey to uncover the truth in the Daniel Harper case, where justice finally spoke in the El Paso desert. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to catch more cold cases we'll reopen in the next video, where every small clue can change an entire story.